It's Judy from Patterns for Pirates, and I'm going to sew up a youth essential take with you today. I have a Racerback option, Maxi length, so I'll be doing the side splits, and that's it. It's a youth size. I'll be using this wild tie-dye for my daughter. With the Maxi length, it's fairly important, even on the youth, to pick something with some drape. Otherwise, it's not gonna give you that flowy feel when they're walking, and that you always want with a maxi. The other length options, the shirt, tunic, dress, you're free to choose a really wide array of fabrics. The curved hem, again, you're going to want something with some drape, or else your curve isn't going to lie nice and smoothly. It's going to want to tint out. So the maxi and the curved hem are two that you're going to want to use something with a little bit of a soft flowy drape. What I've done is just pinned my shoulder seams, and I'm going to sew them with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin or clip from my armpit down the side seam. If you're doing the maxi like me, you will stop at your markings for the split. I'm going to leave the double pin so I remember that that's my side split marking. On the adult essential take, we have back and front splits, so it's going to be a little bit different from what I'm doing here. Just pinning the other side seam now, again from armpit down to the bottom hem, or if you're doing the maxi youth version, it's from armpit down to your side seam splits marking. I'm going to move to my machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew about 2 inches above straight to my marking right here and stop right here at my marking. I like to use a lightning stitch normally. I'm going to use a dark thread so you'll be able to see my stitches. It's at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and anywhere from 1 inch to 2 inches is going to give you enough room. What this does is it gives you a nice clean stopping point, and you can pull out your seam allowances nicely, and press out your seam allowances nicely and neatly. I usually clip into this so that when I serge it, I can just leave that, and then this presses open for my side split. Just going to repeat the exact same thing on the side. If you're not as comfortable with your serger, you might want to leave yourself more length, maybe 3 inches. And I just, again, clip in there. You don't want to clip into your stitches, just towards your stitches. So now I'm going to finish off the rest of the side seam. I'm going to start right where I clipped into. And I'm just going to repeat on my other side seam the exact same thing, starting right where I clipped in. I want to finish off this little serger thread. You can either zigzag it, pull it back through, knot it off, whatever your favorite method is. I'm going to show you how to do the neckband and armbands on here. I'm going to leave my dress wrong sides out. I'm going to take my neckband and fold it right sides together. I know this fabric is hard to tell which is the right and wrong side. This is right sides together. I'm just going to stitch the short ends, making a circle. I'm going to go ahead and mark my center while it's already folded for me, folded in half. Now I'm going to fold them wrong sides together to make my neckband. So my center back is going to be right on the seam right here. And I already marked my center front where it was on the fold. Now what I'm going to do is, once I can get it folded nicely, put my 2 pins directly on top of each other to find my quarter points. There we go. So now it's marked in quarters, and I'm going to mark my neckline into quarters as well. Anytime I cut pieces on the fold, I always cut a notch. So I have a center back and a center front notch already. My center's marked for me, so I'm going to align them and then just walk my edges out. So this would be my quarter point. You never want to use your shoulder seams as the quarter point. It's very rarely the quarter point. As you can see, my front neckline is much lower than my back neckline. Most of the time that's the case unless it's got a lower scoop back or a super high crew neck with a lower back, something like that. But you always want to check and make sure and find your quarter points. You never want to assume that the shoulder seams are the quarter points because they very rarely are. Unless the front and back neckline are exactly the same. So now this is marked into quarters. I'm going to slide my neckband inside since I have it inside out. I'm aligning my side seam on the very back center. Now I'm going to match my center front. I want it right sides together since I have my dress inside out. That's why I'm sliding it inside. You can put a few more pins. As you can see, the neckband is smaller than the neckline. You're going to have to stretch it to fit it. So you can put in as many pins as you need to feel comfortable. I have a really slinky fabric here today. So the more pins probably the better. Usually I don't use very many on a use size since it's just not very much fabric. But today I'm going to go ahead and use a few more pins than normal because it is a slinky, harder to work with fabric. I'm just going to zip around with my serger. If you are a beginner seamstress, Even if you have a serger, I highly recommend basting your neckband around with a long straight stitch on your machine and checking to make sure you're happy with it before you do your final stitch. This is something that will save you a lot of headache. Neckbands are just a guide. Patterns for Pirates usually does about 85% of the neckline. But a lot of times, depending on your fabric, you might want it ever so slightly looser or ever so slightly tighter. And as a beginner, it's hard to know. Usually, if I'm cutting out a fabric, I've sewn enough necklines that I know if it's a tighter one and I'm going to need a little extra, and I just cut my neckband a little extra long. Or if it's a super loose one with not very good recovery, I'll cut it a little tighter to make up for that. So until you're really comfortable with necklines and can feel that difference, a really good habit is to baste your neckline on before you make your final stitch. If it's gathering up your neckline, you'll know you need a little bit longer neckband. And if it's flopping out, you know you'll need a little bit tighter neckband. And it's much easier to just pull out a basting stitch than a stretch stitch. So here's my neckband. I'll flip it out right sides for you. So all it needs is a good press. And you can top stitch if you like. If yours is gathering up slightly, then a top stitch will help even that out. As you top stitch, you can just stretch it a little bit, and it'll help fix that if it's still there after you press. A lot of times just a press will take care of any kind of bobbling you have. I'm just going to repeat the exact same thing on the armbands. I'm going to sew them right sides together, fold them wrong sides together into a band, mark them into half points or quarter points, and attach them the exact same way. One thing I'll mention on this last armband is anytime you do a tank top, you want to do most of your stretching your band around the bottom armpit curves and not around the kind of straighter parts that are on top of the shoulders. Anytime you're banding anything, the curvier parts that you're attaching to is going to feel like you're stretching a lot more. And on a tank top, that's where you really, most people really want it to be snug, is under the armpits. So it's important to make sure you are stretching your band nice and tight around those armpit curves. This top section right around your shoulder seam doesn't need to be stretched as much. Like an inch or two around the shoulder seams, depending on what size you're doing. And as you get to this bottom curve part right under the underarm, you want to make sure you have it nice and snug there. Helps prevent want that underarm gape that a lot of women get that are busty. If you make sure and stretch more around that armpit curve than the top of your tank top straps. Alright, so mine needs a nice press, and I'm not sure if I'll top stitch or not, just because I'm not sure what color I would pick, but I might do pink for her since that's her favorite color out of this. And it just needs hemmed. The side splits get pressed out just like it naturally does right here. So I'll just press those seams and then stitch around. I usually do a mountain right here, so I go to a V. You can also do a squared off, whatever you prefer. And then I'll hem along the bottom as well. And we'll be done, and she'll have a nice, comfortable, super wild tie-dye dress all the way to the floor like she loves. Thanks for sewing along with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait to see your essential tank.